Welcome to Martial Road, a journey through forgotten techniques, forbidden moves, and the untold power of martial arts. When most people think of karate, they think of the big names: Shotokan, Goju-ryu, maybe Kyokushin. But Okinawa, the birthplace of karate, holds dozens of lineages that most martial artists have never encountered. Some were kept within families for generations. Others were practiced only by palace guards or police officers. A few were overshadowed by their famous sister styles. Today, we're diving into 10 legitimate Okinawan karate systems that flew under the radar for decades, or even centuries. These aren't myths or legends. Every system on this list is real, documented, and still practiced today. But you won't find them in every city, and you definitely won't see them in the Olympics. Let's get started. Number 10. Ruer Ryu, the Fuzhou family art. In 1838, a young Okinawan named Nakajima Norishito sailed to Fuzhou, China, seeking advanced martial arts training. He spent 7 years studying under a master known as Ryūei-ryū, learning a system that emphasized fast footwork, sharp angle changes, and unusual hand shapes: palm heels, hooked fingers, spear hands aimed at the throat and ribs. When Nakajima returned to Okinawa, he didn't open a public dojo. He taught only his son. His son only taught his son. For over 130 years, Ryuei Ryu remained a closely guarded family secret. It wasn't until 1971 that the third generation inheritor, Kenko Nakima, decided to share the art publicly. He took only 20 school teachers as students, and for the first time, the name Ryuei Ryu was used. Today, Ryuei Ryu is practiced internationally, but it remains far less common than the major Okinawan styles. Its Chinese roots are unmistakable: tight, elastic rhythms, and techniques you simply don't see in mainstream karate. Number 9. Towan Ryu, Goju-ryu's sister style. Here's a question. If you learn from the same master as the founder of Goju-ryu, one of the 4 major Okinawan styles, why isn't your style just as famous? That's the story of Kyoto Johatsu and Towan Ryu. Both Kyoto and Chojung Miyagi studied under the legendary Higaonna Kanryo in the early 1900s. Both were considered senior students, but while Miyagi went on to create Goju-ryu and spread it across Japan and the world, Kyoto kept a lower profile. After World War II, Kyoto formalized his teachings as Towan Ryu. The name itself is an alternative reading of Higaonna's name, a tribute to his teacher. The style emphasizes heavy sanchin training, close power range, and breath control that locks the torso like a vice. Towan Ryu is often called the other Higaonna style. It's smaller, quieter, and less commercialized than Goju-ryu. But it preserves an older, harder-edged version of Nahate that many believe was closer to what Higaonna originally taught. Number 8. Matsumora Seto, Shorin-ryu, the bodyguard's line. Matsumora Sokan was a 19th century royal bodyguard and one of the most important figures in karate history. Multiple Shorin-ryu branches claim descent from him, but one lineage claims to be the Orthodox transmission: Matsumora Seto, meaning Matsumora Orthodox. Hohan Sokin, who lived from 1889 to 1982, said he learned the art directly from his uncle, Nabe Matsumora, who was Matsumora Sokan's grandson. Sokan didn't start teaching publicly until the 1950s, after returning from decades in Argentina. Matsumora Seto emphasizes light, fast footwork, whipping strikes, and a famous kata called hakatsuru, white crane, which uses one-leg stances and pecking hand strikes. Now historians debate whether Sokan's lineages is ironclad, because what's not debatable is Matsumora Seto is a legitimate, well-documented branch of Shorin-ryu with a unique technical flavor. It's practiced worldwide, though it remains less common than the Kobayashi Ryu or Matsubayashi Ryu. Number 7. Kojo Ryu, the merchant family's art. In 1932, 36 Chinese families went from Fujian province to Okinawa to serve as diplomats, translators, and craftsmen. They settled in a district called Kume, and among them was the Kojo family. For centuries, the Kojos traveled back and forth between Okinawa and Fuzhou. and they brought martial arts knowledge with them. The result was Kojo Ryu, a family system that blends Okinawan and Southern Chinese techniques. You could see the Chinese influence immediately. Short bridge forearm work, palm strikes to soft targets, and quick outside steps designed to break grips. The weapons training, sai, nunchuck, even shield and short spear, uses the same footwork as the empty hand techniques. Kojo Ryu stayed inside the family until the late 1970s, when Kafu Koju and his son Shigeru briefly opened a public dojo. After their deaths, the art nearly disappeared. Today, only a handful of instructors worldwide are authorized to teach it. Number 6. Motobu Udundi, the Palace Guard Secret. The Motobu family wasn't just any Okinawan family. They were Udun, meaning they had blood ties to the Ryukyu royal family. And like any royal household, they had their own martial art for bodyguards. Motobu Udundi, literally Motobu Palace Hand, was designed for close quarters protection. No long stances, no flashy kicks, just continuous stepping, wrist controls, face posts, and off-balance techniques that put any attacker on the ground without a big struggle. It's closely related to Tagumi, Okinawan grappling, and it was never meant for public demonstration. The techniques were taught only to the eldest son of the Motobu family and a selected few trusted students. This is distinct from the karate of Motobu Choki, the famous brawler. That's a different branch of the family tree. Motobu Udundi remained almost completely private until recent decades. Even today, there are very few authorized instructors, and the art is still taught primarily one-on-one. Number 5. Motobu Kenpo, the brawler's karate. Now let's talk about the other Motobu, Motobu Choki, one of the most legendary fighters in karate history. Choki was the second son, so he didn't inherit the family's palace art. Instead, he learned karate the hard way, street fighting in the rough districts of Naha, and later challenge matches in Osaka. In 1921, at over 50 years old, Motobu entered a boxing versus judo exhibition in Kyoto. When a Western boxer agreed to fight him, Motobu knocked him out cold with a rising palm strike. The story was published in Kingu magazine in 1925 and made Motobu famous across Japan. Motobu's karate was brutally practical. He drilled Naihanchi kata obsessively and developed 12 short two-person drills that taught entries, grips, and strikes from the clinch. No wasted movement, no poses. His son, Motobu Chosei, continued teaching the methods. Today, Motobu Kenpo practitioners emphasize live pressure, close-range work, and real-world application over aesthetics. Number 4. Ufu Chiku Den, the police chief system. Ufu Chiku was a title. It meant chief of police in the Ryukyu kingdom. And in the late 1800s, a man named Kanagusuku Sanda held that position. Sanda's job wasn't to fight duels, it was to arrest people in crowded markets, narrow alleys, and palace corridors. So the system he developed, now called Ufu Chiku Den, is all about control. Wrist locks, elbow levers, face posts, hip checks, and using weapons like the sai, truncheon, and even rope to restrain without killing. Later custodians like Uehara Sekichi kept the art alive in small private circles. It was never meant for sport or public demonstration. It was a professional skill set for law enforcement. Ufu Chiku Den is technically a kobudo system, focused on weapons, but it includes significant empty hand techniques. If you know mainstream karate kata, the grips and controls will feel familiar because they're hidden inside the movements you already practice. Number 3. Ryukyu Kempo, Ryūei, Oyata's pressure point art. In the 1970s, American servicemen in Okinawa started hearing rumors about a small, unassuming instructor who could knock people out with light touches to the neck, wrist, or ribs. His name? Seiyu Oyata. Oyata had studied under multiple Okinawan masters and synthesized their teachings into a system called Ryūei, Ryuku Hand. It emphasized 2 core elements: to eat, joint locks and manipulations, and kusho, strikes to nerve points and pressure points. Oyata's demonstrations were shocking. A light tap would cause a student's arm to go limp. A palm strike to the side of the neck would drop someone instantly. But Oyata insisted it wasn't magic. It was anatomy, timing, and precision. He was adamant that every movement in kata had a practical application, usually involving a grip break, a nerve strike, or a takedown. He never chased big seminars or flashy stunts. He taught in small groups and demanded that students understand the why behind every technique. Today, Ryūei has a dedicated following, though it remains smaller and quieter than major styles. Number 2. Hakutsuru-kei, the White Crane Connection. Here's something most karate students don't know. A significant chunk of Okinawan karate comes directly from Chinese white crane kung fu. In the early 1900s, a Chinese tea merchant named Go Kenki moved to Naha. He was a white crane practitioner and he taught several prominent Okinawan masters, including Miyagi Chojun, the founder of Goju-ryu. White crane techniques are distinctive. Fingertip strikes, palm pecks to the throat and jaw, whipping power that snaps at the end instead of driving through, and light, bird-like footwork. You can find white crane kata, often called hakatsuru, in several Okinawan styles. Goju-ryu has versions, Ryuei-ryū has versions, some Shorin-ryu branches teach it only to senior students. But here's the key. Hakatsuru isn't a separate karate system. It's a set of kata and principles that were absorbed into existing Okinawan styles. It's a piece of the puzzle, not a standalone art. Still, it represents a direct, documented link between Fujian Kung Fu and Okinawan karate. Number 1. Kishaba Juku Shōrin-ryū, Hidden Power in Plain Sight. Our final entry isn't a rare family art or a palace secret. It's a teaching methodology within Matsubayashi-ryu Shorin-ryu, one of the most common Okinawan styles. So why is it on this list? Because Kishaba Juku, founded by Choki Kishaba, teaches something most karate schools have lost: internal power mechanics. Watch a Kishaba Juku practitioner hit a pad, and you'll notice something strange. Their shoulders barely move. The technique looks small, almost casual, but the pad jumps like it was hit by a sledgehammer. The secret is Shinkuchi, explosive power generated by coordinating the hips, ribs, spine, and breath at the instant of impact. And Koshi, the use of the pelvis to drive every movement. Kishaba Juku students practice the same kata as the Shorin-ryu schools: Naihanchi, Pasahi, Kushanku. But the internal mechanics are completely different. It's not about speed or strength. It's about timing, structure, and whole body connection. Choki Kishabi passed away in 2000, but his senior students, like Toshiro Oshiro, continue teaching the method. So there you have it, 10 legitimate Okinawan karate lineages that most people have never heard of. Some, like Ryūei-ryū and Kojo Ryu, were genuinely kept secret within families for over a century. Others, like Towan Ryu and Kishaba Juku, were simply overshadowed by more famous relatives. A few, like Motobu Udundi and Ufu Chiku Den, were specialized arts designed for palace guards and police, never meant for public consumption. Are they secret today? Not really. Most have been public for decades, but they remain rare, and many are still taught in small traditional settings rather than large commercial dojos. If you're a karate practitioner, it's worth knowing that the art you practice is part of a much larger, more complex family tree. The 4 big styles, Goju-ryu, Shorin-ryu, Uichi-ryu, Isshin-ryu, are just the tip of the iceberg. Okinawa holds dozens of lineages, each with its own history, techniques, and philosophy. And many of them are still out there, waiting to be discovered. Which of these 10 surprised you the most? Let me know in the comments. And if you want to dive deeper into Okinawan karate history, check out the sources in the description. On Martial Road, we follow those shadows. Remember to subscribe, like, share, and see where they lead.